This episode of the Level Flight Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN. Summertime and trimming is easy. Every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the belt. That's why it's easier to trust Manscaped for all the sensitive areas. The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare for that summer bod. Manscaped was nice enough to send us something special. Inside the package we got, you'll find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Their 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. We also have dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3 setting combs, and oh, did I mention this trimmer is waterproof? Get 20% off and free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. Okay, we good to go?
Always good to go.
I'm just chilling at Canada Life Center.
That's the hard-hitting analysis you listen to the Level Flight Podcast for.
Here we go.
Jets are a brisket team, low and slow for the first 2 periods, and boom, an explosion of flavor in the last few minutes of the third.
Doing all right. Better if my internet would work.
Elliotte.
This is comedy. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliotte.
Hey, hey.
Wow, that was fun.
You're listening to the Level Flight Podcast.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome into episode 18 of our LFP Live. We're live every single Sunday morning, and we've got a ton of people here in chat. There was some big news yesterday. We'll get to that later on. My name is Connor. I'm joined by Brian. Brian, how you doing today?
You know, I'm doing good. And like I will say, every single time we name the edition this is of LFP Live, it's wild to me that, you know, we've done this for 18 weeks now, almost consecutively. There's only been a couple that we've had to miss, but it's it's very, nice for us to have something that we had the idea of having. And then now, it's Sunday morning and we've already got a bunch of people in here. So I'm doing great. Got the coffee as always. Not at the ballpark this morning. I'll be heading there after this. But still the show goes on.
The show goes on. Yeah, not at the ballpark, but we will both be there later on today as the Gold Eyes go at 1 o'clock. Smash that like button, as C-Mac said. Love to see it. Tons of people in chat. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for dropping a chat. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get into the Rucker McGroarty news. We're going to maybe wait like a few minutes here, let some people join us, let some people wake up on a Sunday morning, and then get into it. So let's start with the assistant coaches. The Jets hired 2 new assistant coaches, Davis Payne, and I've always butchered the other one. Hold on. I got to find it. There you go. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for filling it because I would have butchered it. But yes, they hired 2 assistant coaches. It took a lot longer than usual. Or that we would have thought, or Neil said it was imminent at his introductory presser, and it took almost 2 weeks for them to hire them. But Davis Payne and
Dean Chenoweth.
Dean Chenoweth. Okay, I got it. Now from here on forward, I got it. Brian, what were your first thoughts when you saw that these 2 were hired? Their track records as head coaches, they were both assistant coaches elsewhere. What were your initial reaction?
I'll be entirely honest. My initial reaction wasn't great. When I see Dean Chenoweth, because he was running the Leafs penalty kill last year, and I see that the Leafs penalty kill was right on par with where the Jets were, and that was something that needed to be improved. And I think what turned me around on that as I looked back, and aside from last year, his track record on the penalty kill has actually been quite good. It's usually top 15. There was even a couple top 10 finishes. And then with Davis Payne, anything attached to the Ottawa Senators recently, I have tended to feel a little bit
Yeah.
iffy on. But once again, like the stylistic requirements of his power play just didn't seem to be met by that team in Ottawa, because let's be honest, like that team in Ottawa is not, what they should be.
Right. No.
So I think in terms of what the Jets have right now and what they could have, I think that it could end up being a decent fit for both parties. And yeah, I need to see it in action, but I'm not. I definitely turned my opinion a little bit after my initial reactions.
Yeah, that's fair. I did see people posting the Ottawa Senators power play heat maps. And basically there's this big red blob right in the crease. And my first thought was like, well, isn't that just Brady Tkachuk like throwing the puck at goaltender's feet every 5 seconds every time he gets the chance? And maybe it is. I haven't watched enough of the Senators power play. But stylistically, that'll be the same thing. We know how dominant Gabriel Velarde is at the side of the net. We know that there wasn't much movement around the perimeter from Scheifele, Morrissey, and Connor. They would just kind of stand in their spots and maybe shoot the odd one-timer, like from Kyle Connor's point of view, shoot the odd one-timer. But they needed a stylistic change. We're hoping that it will be, but you can't really draw much from just the hires themselves. You need to see what they do. Same thing with Scott Arniel. Like, you can't draw much from, oh, they hired Arniel. You need to look at, what changes he actually makes to the team next year. But a brand new coaching staff, or at least power play, penalty kill, and head coach moving up from that penalty kill position, I think there'll be an upgrade, but it's really tough for the special teams to go down as like all eyes on special teams. Yeah, like the special teams were so bad last season that as long as these two assistant coaches are just like special teams specialists, and they're able to adapt the penalty kill and the power play to where this team needs it to be, it'll be a win. But until we see that in action, there's really nothing to draw from this, unless you have anything else to say on the assistant coaches. No, nothing.
No, I mean, a lot of what assistant coaches do needs to be seen in action with the team that they have, right? So I think that it is so hard to properly forecast what we're going to see. And yeah, exactly. Like it's clear that when they hire people and then immediately point out that, okay, they're in charge of the forwards and the power play, they're in charge of the the defense and the penalty kill, they know what they need to address, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're going to have more of an idea based on what they've done in their interviews, based on what they've heard from other people in terms of why they hired them, because there's enough people that are out there in need of jobs who have experience on a penalty kill and have experience on a power play, but not all of them are going to have what the Jets are looking for in that system. So clearly they saw something that said, oh, these are the guys that we want to sort of help to run through things. So I don't know. It's, as I said, it's just tough to properly forecast, but I think in terms of philosophical approach, I think they're in the right place.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a start. And then, like I said earlier, all you can do with really assistant coaches hires is wait to see what happens, because again, I know we're a hockey podcast in a Canadian market, and we just spent the first 10 minutes of this LFP live talking about assistant coaches, but there's really not much here until you see what happens. The big news, and there actually is something here, is that Rucker McGroarty is likely to be traded. That report came from Murat Ates from The Athletic. Earlier in the day, it was Elliotte Friedman who just kind of floated out there in 32 Thoughts that McGroarty's name had come up in trade talks. He said that report didn't come from McGroarty's camp, didn't come from the Jets camp, which means another team, I guess, floated that to him. But either way, that was that report. And then about 5 hours later, I want to say, Murat had a full article with a league source that was telling him that Rucker McGroarty doesn't want to, or thinks his path to the NHL is best suited in another organization. I don't have that quote exactly correct, but that's around there.
That's the gist of it.
That is. what was your first reaction? Not only to the Elliotte Friedman report that he was involved in trade talks, but then the Murat article and his report, I think, was the biggest, like, whoa, this is real. Like the Elliotte Friedman thing, I think we had a talk in our Telegram chat, me, you, and Elliotte, basically saying like, well, we'll see, like, what's the legitimacy of this report? Not to question Elliotte Friedman's legitimacy, but like, what, it just came out of nowhere that he's in trade talks, and it's like, okay, why? Then Murat drops the bomb of an article, and I think that was the biggest thing. But what was your initial reaction to both?
I mean, initial reactions were, it frightens me when the first person on a scoop is Friedman, because
Yes,
Friedman is typically one of those guys that he has all the closest sources. Like, he's the one who's breaking deals and everything. So when he's putting that out there on his on 32 Thoughts podcast, immediately I'm like, that's frightening, because there was nothing beforehand. Like, yesterday was the first any of this has been heard of, and then to have it furthered by the locals here and then Murat, it's, I don't know. My first instinct was to feel angry, because it just feels like they're getting in their own way. And we're now to a point where we are, what, in the last year, we've heard, oh, this is the future captain of the Winnipeg Jets, and now suddenly he doesn't want to play here because he doesn't see the that path.
Yeah, which is a crazy swing, and it's truly unbelievable how they got to this point. The Scott Billick and Murat Ates, and Mike McIntyre, Ken Wiebe, all the Big J journalists, they were all over this. There was a collective kind of sense that Rucker McGroarty sees what's happening with Cole Perfetti, what happened with Ville Heinola, and the fact that it's assumed that the Jets weren't going to promise him an NHL spot going into this season. If he signed his entry-level deal, he was going to start in the AHL unless he completely killed it in training camp or instead of injuries. And I don't think Rutger likes that. I mean, his two teammates, Frank Nazar and Gavin Brindley, are already in the NHL on bad teams, but at the same time, they're in the NHL. And Rucker McGroarty had a fantastic season. So that's where he's coming from in this, where he doesn't want to play in the AHL. He just dominated in the NCAA. He sees all of his teammates who dominated go to the NHL, and he's thinking, why can't I? And the Jets are probably saying, well, you got to earn your spot because we're a playoff team and you got to develop properly on the Moose. And maybe that is the best for his development. But right now, you risk losing a player or having to trade a player for less value than what he really is, simply because you want to play him like 10 games with the Manitoba Moose. Like, I feel like this is kind of silly, but were you shocked at McGroarty's reasoning? Like, obviously this was a shock, but when you saw why McGroarty's doing this or where his camp's coming from, was that a shock to you, or did that make a little sense? Yeah,
we've had so many conversations over the past several years about how there is a general perception of the Jets that they are a draft and develop team, but they have not been. Like, let's be honest, like, aside from Perfetti, who has had success, he had 19 goals this season, but he was also held out for half the year and then was given one game in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Since Kyle Connor in 2015, where's the draft success been in the first round? All of these guys either have got hurt, they have been misses, and I feel like the thing with me is Rucker McGroarty profiled as this guy who could step in a leadership role at some point. And I think that the viewpoint that the Jets had on him was this is a guy who you can, add as one of your franchise faces in the next several years.
Mm-hmm.
And then to go from that to this, I wonder where their vision is, because let's be real, you're not adding anyone in free agency who's going to be some massive game breaker, because no one's going to rightfully choose Winnipeg to be, their UFA home. Right. Let's be honest, like last year at the deadline with the Toffoli and Monahan ads, that was kind of an outlier. There's never been two big ads like that, and it didn't end up working out for them. So I wouldn't be shocked if they don't feel like they're, wasting their time trading assets for it. So when you've got guys who seemingly are going to make an NHL impact at some point in their career, like Rucker McGroarty, who, in my opinion, if he was actually told that he could get the chance to do it, I think he could have cracked the lineup out of camp this year.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because I'm like, if you're not getting them in UFA, you're not getting them via trade, and you're not getting them out of your drafted players, where are your players coming from? You're just hoping that everyone stays, hoping that everyone, pulls a turn like Scheifele and Hellebuck, that you had to essentially give them a vision. Like, where are we going with this? Because McGroarty has been referred to several times over the past year as kind of their untouchable. And I truly think that what you need to look at is what changed, because clearly at some point in the last year, the messaging he's got from the Jets and just watching how they've, handled their prospects and handled, their younger players. I think that I can't blame him for saying, I don't think that there's a path in this, franchise, because they're, instead of playing Rucker McGroarty, they would probably play Mason Appleton for, 17 minutes a night.
Yeah. Like that reasoning to me is not shocking at all as well. Like, and CMAC brings up a great point here, and I agree. Chevy won't be pushed. He has 2 years before he loses rights. Not sure why Murat's report says a deal will likely get done before the draft. The Murat, there was the very last sentence of the article that said he's under the impression that a deal is going to happen soon and likely before the draft. And that to me was like kind of a head scratcher. The quotes I've read until the Murat article made it seem like this relationship was salvageable. Then the Murat article came out, and that was like, oh boy, like the Jets clearly thought that he had a long way to go, type of thing. And McGroarty clearly thought he was NHL ready right now. Like Matthew Nyes, the way he came out of college and straight into the NHL and made an impact. Like, I think that's what Rucker was hoping for and didn't get that, obviously. And still didn't get that because he committed to Michigan because they didn't promise him an NHL spot. I don't see anything happening soon. I don't know. Like, Cheveldayoff has been notoriously patient on these things. This is the top prospect, like you said, potential future captain, was untouchable a week ago. Like a week ago, if someone said to you, like, yeah, Rucker McGroarty is going to be moved before the draft, it'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, I just don't. Yes, the quotes are damning and it doesn't sound good, but I just don't see it happening this quickly. I just don't, because like you said, what's the vision here? If people in chat are also bringing up, like, if you can move McGroarty for a win now type of player or a player that helps the team now, then that's worth it. And I disagree. Like, you need some kind of prospect pool or some kind of player to come in 3 years from now and make you a good team 3 years from now.
Also, the news just came out. Rucker McGroarty doesn't see the vision with the Jets. He's a depreciated asset now. Like, clearly he doesn't want to play here. So obviously no one's going to, say like, oh, why would we pay all this, these assets to acquire a guy who might not even sign, right? And the thing is too, and from everything that I've gathered, it's nothing about Winnipeg. It's nothing about the city. It's nothing about the market. It is entirely about what he sees from the coaching staff, what he sees from the management, to say that I don't see how it works. And this is like, I'm seeing a lot in the chat here about how, well, if he doesn't want to be here, then move him. Can we maybe look at why he doesn't want to be here and start indicting that rather than looking at McGroarty and being like, you know what, good riddance? Because I would rather Rucker McGroarty have a better shot at an NHL spot than us to do the same thing that has been done over the past several years, and us, to see one playoff, win essentially over the last 2 years. There's been a single playoff win in each year. Since 2017, there has been one series win. Like, is there a point where we can, finally get rid of the whole draft and develop thing? Because, how many players have been essentially run out of a lineup spot, run out of a town, run out of a chance to be that guy that everyone wanted them to be, because we're at that point now where in the last several years we've had quite a few where it's like they have promise. Where is it gone?
Exactly. And I mean, to even bring this back a little bit, Logan Stanley requested a trade at one point, reportedly. Ville Heinola, it came out, reported, Jacob Stoller, friend of the pod, reported that he was unhappy with how they were handling his development. Cole Perfetti last year was clearly unhappy with how they were handling his development. And all for what? For Nate Schmidt to play on the third pair, for Neil Pionk to play 20 minutes a night in place of Ville Heinola. Like, yes, I get it. He broke his ankle, and that was damning to his development this past season. But there was a lot of time before that and a lot of mediocre defensemen that he could have played over. And when you see that, like, is it a guarantee that Rucker McGroarty would come in and play over Alex Iafallo? I don't think so. Iafallo had a pretty bad year last year. Like, people forget that. Like, if Velarde wasn't as good as he was, the Jets might, like, Kate Dubois, the other side of the deal, whatever. But if Velarde wasn't as dominant as he was in the games that he played, because he was hurt in and out of the lineup, I still think like that trade is great. It's a massive win. But Iafallo didn't play well last season, and he was on the fourth line for the majority. And when he was on the top line with Connor and Scheifele, they got shelled in their minutes. So I is that even a guarantee? Is it a guarantee that he'd play over a Mason Appleton? I don't think so. So from Rutger's side of things, it's like, if I'm not gonna play and you're just gonna stick me with the Manitoba Moose when I already proved I can dominate the NCAA and all my friends are going to the NHL.
He's not developing anymore by going back to Michigan.
No, he's not. Which is the concern when he committed. That was the concern that everyone was bringing up. Like, okay, he just dominated last season. Why is he going back? And now we've kind of figured out why.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people asking, Roslovic not happy either. That's a great point. Jet-centric, welcome to the chat. Nice to see you. Sorry, I wanted to bring up, yes, Rat River Rebel. Maybe they trade for a top 10 pick. I want to get your thoughts on what his value is, because I saw someone throw out a poll on Twitter. Is Rucker McGroarty's value higher or lower than the 10th overall pick? And my answer to that is his value's higher as a 14th overall pick, who's now further along in his development and just came off his best season as a player, dominating the NCAA last year. His value is higher than that, but I can't sit here and say that they'll get a top 10 pick for him. Like, if now that this is public, I don't see them getting a top 10 pick for him.
No,
even though that's his value. I think his value is worth maybe a pick in the 7 to 12 range in this year's draft. I still don't think,
or a prospect at the same place in their development.
Which Corey asked, do you think they'll swap for someone like Cutter Gauthier, Jamie Drysdale type deal? I think that's more where they're headed rather than just a straight up pick. But
who's to say that guy that they trade for is even going to end up in the lineup?
This is where we're at. Well, what do you think his value is in terms of like pick and / player in return if they were to make a deal? There's so many uncertainties, but if you had to guess.
I mean, in terms of his actual value and what he brings, if this is a different situation, I think it's definitely worth a top 10 pick. Especially because, as you said, you have a guy who is, now in his draft plus 2 year. And I think that if teams had the ability to draft out of their D2 year, they would be doing it, because that is the whole thing where I think that him at this stage and wanting a spot that he could compete for in the NHL, I think that his value dictates that he would get that chance. And let's be honest, you could draft someone at 10th overall and they're not playing in the NHL for 3 years, right? So you have someone who's a closer asset right away. That being said, now that it sounds like this relationship is severed, he probably wouldn't sign anyways. What's stopping teams from just being like, I'll just wait it out then? Or you trade it to me now for a second round pick?
Yeah. And I agree with Doug here. Trading for a pick is a bad move. It gets you a possibility. And to your point earlier, with how bad the Jets have been at drafting over the past 10 years, 9 years, 8 years since Kyle Connor. Yeah, you draft in hopes of getting Rucker McGroarty. Like that's the point.
He's
So
developing like you wanted.
Yes, and now they're trying to slow track it. Like I don't see it. Like there's a larger issue at play here with the way that Jets players, young players are being developed. We brought up Perfetti and Heinola, but also you bring up McGroarty, you bring up Salamonson. Should Elias Salamonson be in the NHL next season? There's a legitimate conversation that he could play third pairing sheltered minutes and be just fine because he just dominated and played amazing on Skellefteå in the SHL. We talked to Scott Wheeler of The Athletic. He talked to Skellefteå, their staff. Everyone loves him there. He's playing amazing. He might be too good for the AHL. Like, you might just have to throw him into the NHL because he's that good. Rucker McGroarty, same thing. Leader, can play in the bottom six. This isn't a conversation of like Cole Perfetti. Oh, he can't play on the fourth line. McGroarty can play in your bottom six. He can play with Adam Lowry and play physical. Like, that's not a problem. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yep.
What like, where is this coming from? I don't see it.
Yeah, and let's be real. Like, every single NHL player is also going to look at the money side of it. If you're coming out of college and you're wanting to, sign a pro contract, CMAC bringing up here, NIL deals in the NCAA now are going to pay you what an AHL contract would if they're trying to push your ELC.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I always look back to the idea that is presented by Micah McCurdy, Ineffective Math on Twitter, where it is the day that NHL teams take a chance on someone who might not be good, but could be good, instead of someone is probably not going to be good enough for you, is going to be a beautiful day. Like, I'm sorry, we have seen enough of Mason Appleton to know what he is as a player and what his ceiling is. We have seen a lot of Alex Iafallo to know that he's probably not going to be a top six guy again in his career. We've seen a lot of these guys in that bottom six where you're like, I think this is where they're going to top out. You know what we haven't seen? What Rucker McGroarty could do in that bottom six, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting to a point where they have had almost none in terms of playoff success in the last decade. They've won, 4 series total
since coming back.
No, since coming back.
Yeah,
I
think so. My math is correct. They won 2.
At what point
in the
do we come to the idea of the fact that maybe what we're doing isn't working? Maybe there's an idea of, maybe we should actually start taking because look at the rest of the NHL. There's guys that are playing, like Boston started Matt Poitras. Like, obviously he struggled and they found that out, but they tried it. Like, but as you said, Matthew Nyes, he came in the playoffs of all places a couple years back. Like, why are we so behind in this, this approach that so many other teams have taken in the past that were, they're like, you know what, maybe they're not ready, but let's give it a shot, because if they are, it's going to be great for our cap because they're going to be on an ELC.
Yeah. And honestly, I think a big part of this as well, there's so much uncertainty in the top 6 this year that he doesn't even have to play in the bottom 6. Like, I'm not saying to just throw him in the top 6, but what if you trade Nikolai Ehlers for a first round pick and a prospect that hasn't played in the NHL yet? And then Sean Monahan, you don't re-sign him, and you bring up Brad Lambert and play him in the second line, like Doug says there. Like, there's room. There is room in this forward core. Even though, the bottom 6 might be crowded. You got your captain, you got Nino Niederreiter, who's one of the best third liners in the league. And then you've gotten Alex Iafallo, who, even with a down year last year, is good depth. And to have that type of player in your fourth line is a positive in a big way. Morgan Barron, young fourth line player. I said last year many times he should get one of these promotions up to the top line when there's an injury, because he was having a great year. there's a lot of young players that still need this chance to kind of, we've said it all along. There's going to be a youth movement at some point, given the age of this team, the contracts, the development of the young players, and 4 straightforward first round draft picks. Like, those players are going to have to play at some point. But if you trade away McGroarty, if Lambert doesn't start in the NHL this year and you stunt his development a little bit, Chaz Lucius has been injured every single season. And then Colby Barlow's like 18 or 19 years old. He's still a few years away. We're just continuing the pattern that the Jets have had since drafting Kyle Connor, which is they've drafted not well, like, just simply put, not well. And the forwards, when they draft 4 straight forwards, it kind of gives you a little bit of hope. Like, okay, one of those players, 2 of those players have to hit. Well, we're at the point where none of them might, because they're going to have to trade Rutger because they promised, or they won't promise, or they won't give him a shot to make the team out of camp. I don't know because I'm also a big proponent. Like, I know if Elliotte was here and he said this in the Telegram chat, he would say to just promise him a spot in the NHL. I'm also not on that level of thinking where you can just say, Rutger, you are going to be on the second line next season, no matter what. Nikolai Ehlers, you are going to be on the first line next season, no matter what. Like, you can't do that, because what if they suck? Like, simply put, what if Nikolai Ehlers comes into next season and starts the season terribly for the first 8 games on the top line? Like, I just don't think you can do that. But at the same time, I think the disconnect here is that he's not even being given the chance to win a spot out of training camp. They're saying, if you sign your contract, we're putting you in the AHL. And that's obviously, from Rutger's point of view, that's not where he's at. What else? Anything else on this topic? I mean, there's a lot of people in chat. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you're here, this is your first time, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're here every single Sunday at 9 a.m. Next Sunday, we'll probably have, I don't know, maybe a trade or two to talk about. Nikolai Ehlers, Rucker McGroarty, not sure. We'll definitely have the draft
rapidly approaching the draft here. So
the draft as well. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're here, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for, dropping by, dropping a chat. And yeah, there's a lot in the chat here. Let me just roll through some of these. How is Rutgers game defensively? I haven't seen enough of him playing. Can he be trusted on the third line if they continue to play versus the top lines? It's a great question, because Rutgers' defensive game is maybe the biggest question mark, along with his foot speed. That would be something that would need to be refined. But again, if you're in a sheltered 4th line role, maybe, and then come up to the 3rd line when you see progression, that's when I think you can make that leap. I don't know if you agree, if you've seen enough of Rutger to make a conclusion.
I think it's such a hard thing to do, because I'm of the mindset that when you try and evaluate the NCAA players, there's always seems to be an aspect of their game missing, just because that's just how the NCAA hockey programs are. That being said, I do think that how he plays would play a role in him being someone who could refine a defensive game. Like, he's very smart, he's very physical, but a lot of his game is being very tenacious. And if you're a tenacious player, you are going to have to make reads at some point so you can actually go get the puck, right? So if you can make those reads in the corners, you can probably make them in the open ice too. I'd like to see if that translates, but once again, at some point or another, you got to take the chance on the unknown and hope that you can refine that in a young player, rather than taking the safe route, which has got you nowhere.
Yeah. And again, when you look at Cap Friendly in its dying days, and you cherish every moment you have with Cap Friendly, because it's soon to be gone. But when you look at it, the Jets are getting older. Josh Morrissey's 29, Scheifele's 31 or 30, Hellebuck's 31, and their extensions are just kicking in this year. Like, what do they have? 4 years left, maybe, of this core being at a high level, with Scheifele, Hellebuck, and Morrissey. Like, Morrissey, I have more confidence to maybe be this good until he's 32, and then maybe a little bit of a tail off, but still a top pairing guy or a top 4 guy the rest of the way, given how good of a skater he is and how smart he is. Same with Connor Hellebuck. Like, he's not one of these athletic goaltenders who's like diving all over the place, so he maybe can play a few more years deep into that contract. Mark Scheifele as well, from what we've heard, takes care of his body as a hockey nerd. Maybe he plays well deep into that contract as well. But there's going to come a point here where Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck are each 35, 36, and Josh Morrissey's 34. And who's going to be in the lineup at that point, right? Like, is it going to be like we're going to have no players left? No, I'm kidding. But
well, I mean, let's be honest. Like, obviously, yeah,
it's on the topic of retool is what I'm trying to bring up. Like
Scheifele takes care of his body and everything, but let's also not pretend that he hasn't had a few injuries that could show up again. Like, that's the thing. Like, when you have, knee issues and you have, certain things that are structurally, it can be worrisome. That might show up again. You might just feel a little something when you're into your early to mid 30s, and you're to a point now where there's no guarantee that Mark Scheifele in 3 years even is playing at the level of a top 2 center.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the topic I wanted to bring up with CMAC there. They had New York, they had the core pieces in place, and then they got back-to-back top picks. So you can't really compare that. But retooling with a team where the core is in place, that is, copying that formula. Obviously, you're not going to get an Alexi Lafreniere dropped into your lap if you're the Winnipeg Jets. But at the same time, there is a path here to, elite goaltender, aging core, bringing in some young players, still retooling on the fly. That there's evidence across the league from that working and that happening. And the Jets, boy, will this offseason determine a lot with Ehlers and McGroarty potentially on the move. Yeah.
I want to jump. I was going to say,
a lot of people are asking this as Dave. Yes. Could a talk with Arniel potentially? Yeah. Could a talk with Arniel potentially change McGroarty's mind on a trade? New HC with a new path to the NHL, Brian?
Well, I mean, I'd be concerned if that conversation doesn't happen now, if it hasn't already, because if I'm the Jets, I would see this coming out again about McGroarty and be like, Scott, you want to get on a plane to Ann Arbor and go have a chat with McGroarty there? But I mean, we heard in the exit interviews that part of the conversations were, what's the youth movement going to look like? Yeah. And depending on how those questions were answered by the staff, I wonder what everyone else is thinking about this too, where you have to think that there's question marks everywhere about this. But I do think that if it hasn't already, there is a chance that maybe a Scott Arniel conversation could flip some sort of perception around. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say, though, that it's probably, I wouldn't necessarily guarantee that. It would help. I don't know, though, if you're to the point now where this isn't irreconcilable, though. Like, it seems very iffy in terms of his future with the organization. But I don't know. Yeah. Maybe a nice long conversation, an idea about role, an idea about development might do something to help it.
Yes, for sure. Just rolling through. The chat is bumping today. Everyone has a take. This is huge news, honestly. Like, I know that the shock factor and everything, but this as well, like the misplay by the Jets to allow it to go public. I think the Elliotte Friedman report on it being like him being in trade talks, and that just like, what if they got the deal they wanted and out of nowhere Rucker McGroarty got traded and we didn't know? Like, that would have been even crazier. But now it's like, okay, if he gets traded, obviously there's a disconnect, and we've read all the articles, but man, it's the most hyped up, or like the most anticipated prospect this team has had since Patrick Laine, and now it looks like they might not even have him. And there could have been a time, or there could have been a universe in where he just got traded without us knowing why. That would have been a crazy day on Jets Twitter and Jets land. But anyways, there could be a path for him now. There wasn't a few months ago. Biggest problem is Scheifele is a great second line center, not a first. Lowry's a great fourth line center, not third. Lot of holes with the lineup. To me, if you try and sign Monahan, if you get him, then you move someone else to make room for the young guys. Monahan, I think where are you at with Sean Monahan? Because Brad Lambert also is a part of this conversation. If we're talking about youth in general, a guy who dominated the AHL, like under the Jets supervision, under the Jets organization, was AHL all rookie first team. Signing Sean Monahan for anything, honestly, any amount of time. Like I a few weeks ago, I remember saying if they sign Sean Monahan for 2 years or more, they're blocking Brad Lambert. I now believe that if they sign him for 1 year, they're still blocking Brad Lambert, because I think Lambert is going to have the ability to win that job out of training camp, the second line center role. And at this conversation that we're having of the youth needing to play, I don't think Brad Lambert is going to like develop properly if he just dominates the AHL for another year. Like, I think he had a good enough season last year to where he should be in the NHL next year. Where are you at with the Monahan Lambert thing, as we're on the topic of youth?
The longer I think about it, the more I've come around to the idea of just letting Monahan walk in free agency, because whatever he is going to command is going to be more than I think anyone would want. Right? Like, I can't see him wanting any less than 3 years. Right? I can't see him wanting any less than, there's dollar values that I've seen thrown out here where it's just like, I don't want to pay a Sean Monahan that much for that amount of time when there's guys coming up, and you'll have more cap flexibility if there's guys on ELCs. Right? And it's clear that, obviously they want to find that second line center. They've been coveting a second line center for so long. I just don't think, Monahan's that, especially at this point, because he's, aside from this last year, injury troubles recently, a lot of them.
Played 83 games this year, though.
He did.
83. Super healthy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, for me, I think that it would be better for the organization if Sean Monahan does not return.
I agree. For all the reasons you listed, the ELC, Brad Lambert, I think he should have that spot. And why should, and then you go back to the Rucker McGroarty conversation, and it's kind of the same thing, although they don't have as many question marks in the bottom six. A lot of the bottom six is coming back. But someone brought it up earlier. We don't have a second line right now. The Jets, Ehlers might be gone. Sean Monahan's a UFA. Perfetti was in and out of the lineup last year down the stretch. He should be in the top six starting next year. Scott O'Neill said that on Frank Saravalli's podcast, that he wants Cole Perfetti in the top six. That's where they want him to be. So we'll see. And I agree with Doug. Monahan, the foot speed is an issue for me. The Jets just got killed in every way, but especially the foot speed department. If you're trading Ehlers, and you're not bringing in Brad Lambert,
running out there without skates on.
That would be fun to watch, actually. That would be fun to watch. Anything else on Rucker McGroarty before we move on?
I think
we've talked about go ahead.
My piece. I don't know. I feel like a lot of my anger comes from, past stuff, and I'm channeling it out through this because it's just another sort of thing of organizational philosophy that's just not jiving with what I think should be going with the rest of the league. But no, I think I've said my piece. So I think that's where I'm at on it.
Last little thing, a prediction. Do you think he gets traded in the next 2 weeks? Yes or no?
If I'm going with what everything is, come out, I'm going to say yes. I think it's happening.
Okay. You think this is happening? You think this is it? I don't know. That's a great little drop it in the chat. Yes or no? Do you think Rucker McGroarty gets traded in the next 2 weeks? Murat Ates at the end of his article said he's expecting something before the draft, which is Friday or Thursday. So that's this week, in the next couple days. I'm given a 2 week time frame here, even buying a little bit more time, but I also think it's happening. I think that as much as it pains me to say, and that sigh kind of says it all, I don't think Rucker McGroarty is going to be at development camp. I don't think this relationship is salvageable. I did until the Murat article where he explained and made a great kind of synopsis of the situation, and basically outlined how they got to this point and how the Jets aren't going to be able to kind of fix this unless, well, maybe they will. Maybe there's some people in chat who do believe that this is salvageable, that this relationship can be salvaged. We kind of outlined the ways that it's possible, but A lot of people saying yeah in the comments. All caps Kyle, Stoop, C-Mac, Francis. Oh, in all caps no. There's a big C-Mac with a please no. Rick looks that way. AJ, I have to wait and see. Yeah, Kyle Connor gets traded from Jet Centric. I don't know. There's a lot that could happen here.
It's like I thought it was a different Michigan man.
Yeah, they got the Michigan men mixed up. Anyways, let's take a quick ad break from DraftKings, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Oilers. We're going to go to the questions, and we are going to wrap up the 18th edition of LFP Live. While we're in the ad break, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will be right back.
The chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is just as hot as it is on the ice. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more, don't miss out as the Stanley Cup playoffs wind down. And if you're new to DraftKings, you gotta check this out. New customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into the 18th edition of LFP Live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're here every single Sunday morning, 9 a.m. And starting this week, we've been kind of lacking on this, but there hasn't been news for us to talk about really. But now the news cycle is really picking up. We have episodes that come out weekly as well. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We'll be dropping one Tuesday this week and Thursday, or maybe just one of those days, but we'll definitely have a weekly episode to go along with our live editions coming up this week with the draft and maybe a trade to talk about. Who knows? Jet Centric, just here to comment, try to make the boys laugh. Well, we appreciate you coming by and making us laugh here on a Sunday morning. In these dark times with Rutger McGroarty apparently on the trade block. Before we get to the questions, Brian, and I'll drop the question. I'll open up questions in the chat while I get your thoughts on this. Tomorrow night, Game 7, Florida was up 3-0. The Oilers have come all the way back, and it honestly hasn't even been close in the last 3 games in terms of the games and how Edmonton has played. What if they win tomorrow night? Like this is huge. This is NHL history. Murat Ates tweeted out the other night that we're witnessing history in real time. Like there's a lot riding on this game Monday night. I know like the finals have gone on way too long. Like the draft is this week and we still have a game to play. It's ridiculous. But where are you at with the finals and your kind of confidence level or pessimism level going into Game 7?
Well, I mean, for those of you who have been here in recent weeks, will know that I was not cheering for the Oilers, and I'm still not. But what I've come to realize here, though, is the fact that if the Oilers pull this off, whether you're cheering for them or not, this is like tell your kids level about stuff. Of I remember when I saw this happen, because there has not been a reverse sweep in the Cup final since the 40s.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's as much as I'm like, I was cheering for Florida just because I don't like the Oilers. I do still think that, part of me is interested in seeing what happens if the Oilers manage to, come back. And I don't know. There's a lot of people too that I've seen that are, kind of satisfied with the result. They were cheering for Florida because they didn't want the Oilers, but they're also excited about the fact that Paul Maurice is going to be subjected to the first reverse sweep since 1944 or whatever it was. So honestly, it's kind of it's satisfying everyone apparently. So
Apparently, yeah. No, just to go back on what you said about like this is like tell your grandkids level of stuff on like I remember when Connor McDavid did this. Like this is on the level of LeBron James in 2016 coming back from down 3-1 against
Yeah.
the Warriors, and Tom Brady coming back from down 28-3 against the Atlanta Falcons with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Like this is legendary stuff that we're seeing, and it's truly unbelievable. I'm cheering for the Oilers hard on Monday night. Simply, I've been cheering for them the whole time because, like I've said to many people who roll
I just
their
hope
eyes when I
everyone
say
has
that,
fun.
yeah, as I've said to many people who roll their eyes when I say that, I didn't live through the 90s. I have no ill will against the Oilers. I get it. If you hate the Oilers because they owned the Jets for a long time, I totally understand that. I get that. But they haven't, in my lifetime, the Jets have just swept the Oilers. So there's really nothing there. And Connor McDavid's fun to watch, but I'm cheering for the Oilers simply for the fact that this might be the greatest Stanley Cup won by an individual player in the history of the league if Connor McDavid and the Oilers win on Monday night. Like
He's
what he's
like
doing.
3 or 4 points away from most points in a
Yeah, and you come
playoff
back
run
from
ever.
down 3-0. You beat the Stars. You were like
He's got
underdogs
what,
in that
43
series. You
points?
go to, yeah, like it would be so much like just so historic that there's a lot riding on this game Monday night. But on the flip side of it, you come back from down 3-0. There's all this pressure. First Canadian team to win in whatever in 30 years or whatever the number is. Connor McDavid has all these points. And then what if you lose? What do you lose Monday night? You come all this way just to lose the last game. Like there's a lot. The emotions are going to be high. It's a Monday night. No one has anything else better to do. Everyone's going to be watching.
How presumptuous of you. You don't know what I'm doing on a Monday night.
Well, there's no gold eyes. I know that. So you'll be watching.
Writing a paper.
Oh yeah, true. Actually, I need to
You
write
are
that as
too.
well. I am too. Although I'm gonna got to do it earlier than before that game. Yeah, screw that. Anyways, as I said, questions time. Drop your questions in the chat below. We'll see as many as we can get to here. Usually we go till 10, but we might go a little bit longer today. We both got to get down to the ballpark for the Gold Eyes game that starts at 1:00. So we will try and wrap this up as quickly as possible, but drop as many questions as you can and we'll rapid fire them all. Let's start at the top here. Well, this isn't a question, but too many 2-day breaks between games. This season started 3 weeks before the NBA season and is going to finish a week after it. With ABC now having the rights to both the NBA and the NHL finals, they like staggered the days. So game 7 of the NBA finals would have been tonight, with game 7 of the NHL finals being tomorrow. But obviously the NBA finals were a blowout. The Celtics took it in 5 games. So this series is just going 2-day breaks between every game. It's taking so long. Like this is way too long. Anyways, are the Jets going to re-sign Capobianco? He's one of the UFAs. I personally don't see it, simply because he was an AHL All-Star last year, and I don't think there's room for him in the NHL in terms of signing. It depends what happens with like Nate Schmidt and Neil Pionk as well. Like if they don't have many defensemen to bring up and they buy both of those guys out, then maybe Capobianco is the guy over a Ville Heinola if they don't believe in Ville Heinola. But I'm gonna play the logjam card on this one. Where are you at with
I'm also of the mindset that I don't think he has any semblance of an idea as to whether he's going to even have a chance to be in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm him, I'm seeing if there's, a team that could use him in their, their bottom pairing, their middle pairing, because they're just they're a developing team, but then he'll get a chance to play in the NHL and make NHL money. Right. So that's what I think that he's going to look for the best situation for himself. And I don't think that's here.
Yep. I agree. Chef Richard saying, do you think we could get someone like Owen Power for him? I'm going to assume Rucker, and I think Owen Power, no, like he's maybe the next Victor Hedman, and Buffalo knows it. And he's young. Have they extended him yet, or his contract isn't up yet?
No, I think they extended him.
They did? Oh yeah, you're right. Yes, they did. Yeah.
No, I think it was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was. And I don't see it. No, I think maybe the price for Rutger should be in my opinion, is a little bit closer to maybe a young, promising, could be a top 4 right-handed defenseman or left-handed defenseman, top 4 defenseman, maybe a year or two from now, like a first-round pick that has developed nicely, or it's like a top 10 pick. Like the 10th overall pick I know belongs to New Jersey, I believe, or someone up there. But I remember.
No, it's Jersey, because I saw someone ask if they'd be willing to part with that because of
Yes, something like a top 10 pick or a fringe top 10 pick, or a young promising prospect in return, I think is the price for McGroarty. I don't think you're going to get like a bona fide top 6 forward that's going to really help you win now, or like a bona fide top 2 defenseman that's going to play next to Josh Morrissey and play 25 minutes a night. Like, I just don't think that's the price for him. Where are you at?
Yeah. Circling back here, Owen Power kicking in this year, a 7-year, $58.45 million deal with an AAV of 8.35. So yeah,
8. Wow. They gave him the money. I think what the Jets are looking for, because this question does say someone like Owen Power. I do think that you may be looking for a younger, big defenseman that is promising and could show well with a bigger role or something of that nature. Could be what the Jets are looking for. Off topic, I know, but any thoughts on Teddy Buckets? The Seabears had a wild week, man. They lose 4 straight. They cut the MVP, or the reigning MVP of the league, fan favorite, leading the league in scoring. And then they win back-to-back games in the most improbable way. Like, they were down 12 going into target score time in their first game of the week without Teddy Allen. They win that one. And then last night, they were down 27 points to the Saskatchewan Rattlers and end up winning 103-101. Just a wild week. But was that a shock to you? Them just outright cutting Teddy Allen? It was definitely a shock to me.
So, I mean, I'm very much, you know this, but I haven't really had the ability to watch much of the Seabears because the seasons coincide with the Gold Eyes, and I essentially live at the ballpark during the summer. And from what I can tell, just in my outside perspective, it seemed like there was some ego stuff. There was some teamwork stuff that wasn't working. So it doesn't necessarily shock me that Teddy, who the couple games that I've seen, it looks like he's trying to do it all and teammates are an afterthought.
Yeah.
Now, suddenly he's not there and they're actually working. They're making these comebacks. They're doing all this because when you have a guy like Teddy, when you're down that much, he's going to start trying to do extra himself when he was already trying to do it all.
Yeah.
But when you bring in, JWF, and then you have, guys who play roles and play it well, you can mitigate your losses and find a way to claw back into games. So it doesn't shock me necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Mike Taylor's presser. Shout out to Joey Slattery, who put it up on his Instagram. Great work by Joey. I watched that presser, and it kind of told a lot, where Mike Taylor said a few times, like, we've tried to get him to play in the structure. He hasn't. That basically means like he's a ball hog. He's putting himself before the team. And yeah, like, it's not often that a team cuts the reigning MVP and the highest scorer of the league and gets better. But they just signed JWF, who is the second best scorer in the league. So that's your scoring threat. And then as a team, they're clearly working better in these last 2 games, moving the ball a lot more, hustling for loose balls, rebounding. That has been a big problem, but they seem to be attacking the glass. And yeah, they're not giving up. Down 27 points last night. Still in it, I guess. Came back and won. But yeah, they look a lot better as a team since cutting Teddy Allen, but that was still wild. Have the breaks helped McDavid? Early rounds, he looked good one game, tired the next, good the next. Seemed like this helped him immensely. I think so, but hey, everyone gets the same break, and the Panthers have had a lot of time here to snap out of it. But I do think it's helped him quite a bit, especially when he's playing that many minutes and that many. Yeah, for sure. Are we really about to trade Ehlers and Rucker for a middling top 4D? Maybe.
I don't.
To relate this question to this one, yes.
Welcome to Sunday morning. Let's
give up. Just give up.
Let's get down.
Give up on the Jets for one night. Tomorrow night, become an Oilers fan. You'll be a lot happier for it, or maybe don't, because if they lose,
like if you become an Oilers fan and then they lose after all that, like,
oh man, yeah, exactly. Packaging McGroarty with Heinola and Schmidt, making it a bigger deal than it is. David Jiricek? Question mark. I saw that being
I don't
floated
know.
out
Like
as
this
he
thing,
was
like they bring in, Don Waddell into Columbus. I'm not sure where his temperature
first
is on moving
move
guys.
is going to be moving off of a former 2nd overall pick or 3rd overall pick. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's closer, I think, to
I think so.
the potential. I think like you're getting warmer, but I still think that's a little bit high. Maybe McGroarty plus something else, like another prospect like Heinola or something, could get you that. But yeah, that would be good if they somehow find a way to get David Jiricek and he would come right into the NHL next season. I think that would be great. And AJ Hayes brings it up here. How about packaging McGroarty for a higher return? I think that David Jiricek would be the guy, another young top 4 right-handed defenseman, or to be top 4, projected to be top 4. And yeah, I think that would be fun if they did that.
Yeah.
CMAC reading Jet-centric last poll. Also, yes, last year Jets drafted much closer to home. Do the Jets finally change tracks and look to the WHL and OHL for the majority of their draft picks, with some Europeans sprinkled throughout? This is a great point, because everyone talks about the Russian factor on draft day, but it's actually Americans who are in college that force their way out of teams more often than Russians just simply don't show up to the NHL.
Yeah.
So everyone talks about the Russian factor, but it's actually like the American college factor, where they just control their own destiny and are just like, no, I think I should be in the NHL right now. So trade me.
Let's say with 37, they draft EJ Emery, who's in the development program and committed to North Dakota. To say after all this, he doesn't, just say, I don't want to sign here.
Well, I saw what happened with Ville Heinola, so I don't.
Yeah, I saw what happened with all these other guys. So yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think there's something there where there's, I think, a level of cost certainty that they look for. I don't know. Like it's weird where it's to the extent of you have to take the best player available. And I think that there's a benefit to, if that best player available is the fact that they're going to be in the organization guaranteed for a while.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really interesting, because a lot of people brought that up yesterday on Twitter, and it's something to watch for, honestly, especially with a market like Winnipeg. As of right now, or before the Rutger news, who would be the most NHL ready? Rutger, Lambert, Salamonson, Chibrikov? This is a great question. Who do you think is the most NHL ready, including Rutger? He's still a member of the Jets, or I guess technically not. He hasn't signed, but he's still a Jets draft pick as of right now. Who do you think is the most NHL ready? This is interesting. If you had to choose one,
I would say Lambert.
Really?
I think that his speed and finesse and the ability for him to step in and play, incredibly at that center role for the Moose in his first full season as a center in North America. I would say he's the next man up there. I think that he's the one that I would say I think he will step in and be an NHLer earlier than I think these other guys, because the other guys are more, I think, of a question mark for me.
I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm going to say Elias Salamonson. Honestly, I was so impressed with what he did with Skellefteå last season, and what we heard from Scott Wheeler and what we heard from their staff when we asked about it. I honestly think that he's ready to come in and maybe not play with like Josh Morrissey next season, but I think he's ready to play on the third pairing, or maybe with Dylan Sandberg, or him and Ville Heinola just being like a young developmental third pairing. I think he's a really good skater. I think he's got NHL size, like he's big enough, and he's got the ability where he's big enough and he can skate himself out of trouble, which gives him enough of a foundation, I think, to work in the NHL right now, and then develop into something greater as the years go on. So I don't know if it's a hot take, but I'm going to say Elias Salamonson there. And I think Rutger and Lambert are tied, just because all the reasons you said, and the reason I had for Salamonson, the skating, Lambert, I think that gives him a leg up on Rutger on the adjustment period. But I still think Rutger's ceiling right now might be a little bit higher given how well he played in the NCAA last year. So those ones are maybe a tie for me, but I'm honestly gonna say Salamonson. Let's try and rapid fire the rest of these because we got to go. We got to get out of here. Question: losing Oilers and Rutger, are we in the worst timeline?
I'd like to hop to a different multiverse and find one where the Jets are playing their young guys.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be fun. Sorry guys, can't see myself cheering for an Edmonton team. Just seeing too many of our good Winnipeg teams losing to those Edmonton teams of the year. See, like, this is valid. This is fair. If that's the reasoning, you're not cheering.
That's how I was raised.
I get it. Yes, I get it. And yeah, there's a lot of Winnipeg families who had, older family members who are like, you will not cheer for the Oilers in any capacity because they scarred me for the rest of my life. And that's fine. But hey, I'm not there. Will Brian be at Dev Camp? Ooh, hard-hitting question.
When is it?
It is Canada Day is Monday, July 1st. They haven't released. This isn't official. I'm just guessing, but usually it's right after free agency. So July 1st is the Monday. I would think it's July 2nd or 3rd to the 6th, which is a Saturday. I don't know if the Gold Eyes are in town that weekend or
they come back the 5th.
So maybe one of the first 2 days, if it's 2nd or 3rd or something. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm gonna try. Between my work at the ballpark and my other job, I think that I'm gonna try. Maybe you might see me.
Okay.
I'll make it known if I get there.
Yes, absolutely. Dev Camp's gonna be interesting because who's gonna be there? Is Brad Lambert gonna be there after playing a full AHL season? Is Rucker McGroarty gonna be there? If he is, you got to ask the hard-hitting questions.
I've got some big things here where I get a text from my mom who has always been anti-Oilers, and she is saying she's impressed with the Oilers, down 3-0, way to go. To which it was also said, I don't think we would ever see the Jets, fight back from 3-0 down. So it's interesting to see.
They wouldn't have the pushback. Exactly. Yeah. No, it really is impressive. And it is. They're winning people over. I know my mom as well is super invested in them winning this game because of the history behind what thoughts on dads forcing their kids to cheer for certain teams happens.
No one forced me to cheer for the Ottawa Senators growing up.
Hey, I mean, I feel like as the generation who had the Jets move here when I was 9 years old, I'm not one to speak on this topic. I was a Vancouver Canucks fan before the Jets moved here. And I remember my dad at the time was a Blackhawks fan. So it was there was none of that. So your mom is dead on. There you go. The Jets don't have it in them to fight back from this kind of adversity. I don't see it. I don't see the Jets ever coming back from down 3-0 in the Cup final.
No.
But shout out Nick Lynham. He had a great tweet. He was like, one day I'll enjoy a sold out game 6 of the finals at Canada Life Center. I was like, you know what? That's the hope we need right now. With all this terrible news, McGroarty, Oilers maybe being out. That's the gift that keeps on pushing us. They're going to get there one day. One day we're going to enjoy a sold out game 6. Anyways, it's time to wrap it up. We went long today. Usually we end at 12, but there's so many people here in chat. We really appreciate everyone stopping by, dropping a chat, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss videos, lives, whatever we post. You won't miss it if you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Brian, any last words on the way out today?
I hope that at some point this week we get some clarity. There's a lot of question marks right now that in theory could be figured out by next Monday. Because let's be real, Sean Monahan won't sign on the second day of free agency. He's going to go somewhere on day 1. So by the time Tuesday of next week, so the 2nd, we should have a significantly clearer picture. And boy, will we love to talk about it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, next Sunday, make sure you join us because that's going to be the perfect kind of bridge between the draft and free agency, which starts the Monday night or Monday. I don't know what time it starts on the Monday. Actually, I just know that free agency.
The negotiation period.
Yeah, it's probably 1 1 o'clock here or 2 o'clock here. But anyways, we'll see. We'll figure that out. But we're definitely going to have an episode this week, either Tuesday or Thursday or both, or maybe an emergency episode if a trade goes down or anything of that nature, or a signing happens. But either way, I think we're in for a newsy week here in Jets land. Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned to @LevelFlightWPG social so you don't miss episodes in the near future. We will see you all next Sunday. Enjoy the day, everyone. Head out to the Gold Eyes game with Brian and I, and we will see you all next Sunday. Peace.
See ya.